Great, thank you very much. I suppose what I want to do is I want to introduce a bit of a topic that we have been involved in various discussions with very recently, with a few work stream strands coming out of it that I really wanted to put to you, and then see what you thought, really, whether you think the idea of outdoor learning is one that we really should be pursuing right now, particularly right now, and whether some of the ideas we're thinking about trying over the next few weeks are sensible, ridiculous, whether we've completely missed the boat on outdoor learning. I don't know. That's what I thought I would use today for. So things started off really about the concept of spaces for people, which was the Sustrand's idea about how we would recover from COVID, putting in temporary features that would allow social distancing, recognising that outdoor spaces were mainly safer than indoor spaces, but also that things like nurseries and primary schools was going to start going back to normality earlier than others, particularly those that had outdoor spaces, and how could we capitalise on that and allow more places to open by providing them with safer, more usable spaces that people actually knew how to do. And we'd been having a discussion with Rachel Cowper at the Thrive Outdoors campaign based within Inspiring Scotland. They've done a lot of work about developing outdoor spaces, formal and informal play spaces, that kind of thing. And we were discussing the concept of repurposing vacant and derelict land and underused and wasted spaces. I heard somebody use that phrase quite recently, which I like, and taking use of these spaces, turning them into some kind of outdoor learning, natural play situation, and how we could do that with a response to COVID-19 and produce really safe, accessible, usable, friendly spaces. Those discussions have been very positive, and we are going to be working with Rachel to try and develop, I suppose, an assessment of vacant derelict land spaces in particular, to work out which spaces are feasible, which ones really aren't, and why. And that involves looking at things like the engaged community that's there. But the Baltic Street Adventure Playground in Glasgow, which CSGNT did showcase at one of our conferences a couple of years ago, that's just gone strength from a very small playground into an amazing space now. And that was because the community were really bought into it and really could see the potential and took it and ran with it. So there's an element of you need to have this engaged community who are up for it, as well as the site, but the site also can't be contaminated. You know, you're not going to be spending £500,000 turning it into something that nobody's actually used. What we're hoping to do now is develop a tool which we can start assessing vacant and derelict land sites against their feasibility for being turned into permanent outdoor learning spaces. Alongside that, the Leven Project, which I think Paul was the one that mentioned, he's heavily involved with, as our CSGNT. This is a multidisciplinary programme which is led by SEPA. It has about 20 partners in it, and I'm not going to list them because I will miss them, but it's a catchment scale project looking at the economic, environmental and social regeneration of the Leven catchment in mid-Fife. And that's got everything from wanting to become the first net zero catchment in Scotland to water innovation and community engagement and connectivity, and you name it, it's all in there. And what we're working on at the moment is a connectivity project, which is a 5-kilometre stretch of the river right the way down at Leven, between Windigate and Leven, if you know Fife at all, and developing that into a really good example of quality green spaces with active travel and outdoor learning and food growing and water management and biodiversity value over the next probably about 3 to 4 years. I think in reality we're coming towards the end of concept design stage for this, and that Paul is leading on the master plan development for that, with the idea that come October or so we will get additional funding from Sustrans to create the full detailed design for delivery. Now, as part of this connectivity project, Fife Coast Countryside Trust and the Scottish Futures Trust have started talking about doing some kind of outdoor learning education programme. What I felt they were doing was almost piloting some of the things that we wanted to do with the Thrive Outdoors programme and vacant derelict land, but doing it in a way that they could get going by August, for want of a better phrase. The stuff we were doing with Rachel, we knew we were not going to have time to get something on the ground ready for when the schools go back in August. But what the Leven programme and this partnership are looking at doing is, initially it was developing an outdoor learning programme around the blended learning approach that back in May we thought all the schools were going to be heading towards, where they would have 2 days in school and 3 days out of school. And initially we had conversations with Fife Council Education Department. So the idea was that we would develop projects which could be run across a week, where the teacher would lead stuff within the classroom and then give the kids follow-up stuff to do outdoors on the 3 days that they were not in school. That was how it was starting to be shaped. We also looked at the possibility of actually just creating curriculum-based activities or a toolkit, essentially just probably a little booklet with the idea of fun or educational activities, which the kids could just take home and do with their parents in an attempt to try and get them outdoors doing stuff which might not appear educational, but was loosely at least linked to the curriculum. And then there was a third element, which was this idea of actually running outdoor sessions with third sector organisations such as the RSPB or Conservation Volunteers, Fife Coast Countryside Trust Rangers themselves, where the kids would spend a day outside, probably on one of the 3 days they were not at school. And they would spend a morning doing lead activities within the wider environment, but also then have the afternoon where the parents would come down and it'd be a little bit more informal, and they'd have a bit more flexibility about what they did there. This was in the process of being worked up into like a concrete programme that would start being piloted with one primary school come the 10th of August or whatever date they're confirmed for going back. But I believe, that's going to have to get tweaked now with the ambition that all schools will actually go full time. And it's likely to be more of the in-school stuff with supported outdoor learning by a third sector organisation, but also bringing the families down for informal afternoons and have different classes coming out on different days, essentially to do the same kind of activity somewhere in and around a walkable distance for a school. The third sort of element, I suppose, that we're thinking about this is, well, the view is that we'll test this with East Wings Primary in the first session returning in August, with the idea is if it works, we can make tweaks to it and roll out to other primary schools within this catchment area throughout 2021, and hopefully produce some kind of toolkit which could be used much wider within the school curriculum. The final thing I suppose I want to say is that, building on the conversations we've had with Rachel, what the Coast Countryside Trust and Scottish Futures Trust are doing with the Leven Project, myself, Paul and Stuart, who are both working on the master plan, and other members of the project team, investigating ways on how we can make some of these, what are probably initially temporary features and spaces, into permanent places that means outdoor learning can be embedded a little bit more like it used to be. I'm in my early 40s. I remember doing an awful lot of outdoor learning at schools, and we don't do that anymore. So can we find a way of making it accessible, give the teachers confidence that they know what they're doing, and make sure the spaces are safe and fit for purpose and all the rest of it, and not just have a temporary feature which is great when we're recovering from COVID-19, but very quickly falls out of use when those third sector organisations, they necessarily probably have to take a step back from things. So what we're trying to do within the master plan work is to incorporate designs for permanent, I don't want to say outdoor classrooms, because while they may be outdoor classrooms, the chances are they'll be much more formal and informal spaces which can be used for learning and teaching. And that's hopefully what we'll get out of the Thrive Outdoors campaign, is their kind of experience, the working with what is a very deprived community, but a very engaged community, to develop the kind of spaces they want to see. And also rolling that out wider from just the connectivity project, looking at the repurposing of all these other wasted spaces across the full Leven catchment. That's pretty much all I really wanted to say. I really just wanted to open it up and say, what do you think? There was sort of broadly 3 different tacks we're thinking about taking in the future. Do any of them seem stupid? I don't know. Has outdoor learning seen its day? What do you think?